welcome to the title Town Huddle on the gruelingtruth.net.
Welcome to the title Town Huddle at the gruelingtruth.net, where the legends speak. I'm Joe Pritchard, and with me is Aaron Zepnick, and we try to solve the mysteries of why the Packers are on a 4-game losing streak. You think you're up for the challenge tonight, Aaron?
I don't know if I can accept that challenge, Joe. I think there's some changes that need to be made, quite honestly. No other way to put it.
All right, well, you're the one bringing up the idea of making some changes. What do you got in mind?
I honestly think the team's done playing for McCarthy. I really do. I think there's a persona, and we have the injuries, but you know what? A lot of teams have been banged up this year. Falling to 4-6 with this team, even with the injuries. I mean, you have Aaron Rodgers at quarterback, you have Jordy Nelson and Devontae Adams and Randall Cobb at receiver, along with Ty Montgomery. Granted, there's no running game. I get that. They signed Kristen Michael, claimed him off waivers from Seattle. Didn't even suit him for the game. But that's not what really bothers me. The just lack of effort and lack of knowing your assignments and getting beat 3 times over the top against a team you know is going to take shots. You know that they have Deshaun Jackson, Jamison Crowder that they like to stretch the field with. Even Pierre Garçon, who's an intermediate and underneath route runner, beat us deep. And people are saying, well, these are backups to the backups. I don't care. If they're able to be in the NFL, they should know nobody gets behind you.
Yeah, that seems to be a rather simple concept that the Packers had a lot of trouble with on Sunday night. Now, you do bring up the offense, and I'm just doing a little bit of research tonight here, and I'm seeing that the Packers are 11th in the NFL in points scored, which isn't, setting the world on fire, but it's not the worst either. We hope for better, but it's not terrible. But they are 6th worst in points against. And let me just rattle off the teams that are worse as far as points against goes. The Cleveland Browns, the San Francisco 49ers, the New Orleans Saints, the Atlanta Falcons, and the San Diego Chargers. And besides the Falcons, who are at 6-4, I don't see much winning going on with the teams I just listed.
Absolutely, and 89 points in the last 2 games against teams that aren't even the prolific offenses in the league, in my opinion. I don't think Washington's an elite offense. I don't consider them the Patriots or Pittsburgh or, Pittsburgh's not even scored that many points this year, but I would think that Detroit's got to be up there as far as offensive production. Dallas with their running game and their offensive line, they can score points, but I don't see Washington and Tennessee as top points scoring teams or having that many dangerous weapons. I mean, they don't have neither team has an A.J. Green or a Julio Jones or a Des Bryant or an Antonio Brown or a Tom Brady. So giving up that many points in 2 games to teams that really aren't going to contend for a Super Bowl, in my opinion, it makes me wonder what direction this team is heading.
Well, I guess a little bit of good news here, and mind you, this is including the games they played against the Packers where they put up a ton of points. If Tennessee is actually 5th in the league as far as points scored goes, and Washington creeped ahead of the Packers this past week as well, on that list is here's Indianapolis, who the Packers have also played, Dallas, who's, of course, an elite team, and Atlanta here. So in the past probably 6 to 8 weeks, the Packers have seen a lot of teams that can light up the scoreboard, and light it up they have against the Packers.
Yeah, are those teams that good, or are their numbers a little bit better because they played the Packers? I don't know that we could beat the Cleveland Browns right now with the way we've been playing the last 4 games.
Yeah, it's 1 game out of 10 or 11, but it's sure going to help their averages. That's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the defense the last, for sure the last 4 games, they've given up 30 points or more all of them: Atlanta, Colts, Titans, and now the Redskins. Before that, we had the Bears. We know what they're about. So then we had Dallas, where we gave up 30 points to them, 27 to the Lions, and 23 to the Jaguars. We've only held teams under 20 points twice, and it was the hapless Bears and the Giants, who I think were a little bit banged up when we played them. Odell Beckham had the emotional outburst the week before, so we may have just caught them at the right time, and they put up 16. But you can't give up 30 points every week and expect to win games in the NFL. And I'm sorry, but I've been saying it. People that know me know that I'm not a big Capers fan. I think he's predictable. I think that the game's passed him by a little bit. And, you know, when you should be playing a cover 2 man, then he's blitzing. And, you know, I don't understand the scheme. I don't understand the times that we choose to do things. So I get that Martinez is hurt now. You know, Jake Ryan's hurt. Sam Shields has been out for some time now. But Rollins and Randall were high draft picks. Like, these guys should be able to cover average receivers in the NFL, and they're just not right now. Neither one of them look good. And I think Quentin Rollins got hurt, and I don't think he's been right ever since. He looks slow. He's not turning his hips and running in time. He's taking chances in cover 2 zone coverages. You know, they're just not very fundamentally strong, and the effort's not there. I touched on that last week.
No, the offense is averaging almost 25 points a game, and it's not been good enough lately. I do believe you're right as far as the corner talent goes. The inside linebacker talent has been shredded as well. We do know now that Sam Shields and Eddie Lacy will not be back this year because they designated a player that I don't even know who the guy is, to be honest, to return off of IR, which really strikes me as weird. But that should tell you that Lacy and Shields were never going to come back in the first place. So I think we're going to see a lot more of the same coming up here.
Yeah, that's unfortunate because they still have, you know, the games left to make a run, and a lot of Packer fans feel the same way I do, that we're wasting Aaron Rodgers' prime. And, you know, it's been 6 years now since we went to a Super Bowl already, and you just wonder, are we on the way to 30 years of misery like we ended up in the 70s and 80s?
I think it's a little early to say that. And to be honest, this regime has given Packer fans really nothing much to complain about over the past decade or so. Sure, there's only been one Super Bowl in there, but with 32 teams, that's still a pretty good ratio as far as I'm concerned with the way the team has gone. A couple more breaks and a couple more big plays in a playoff game here and there, and we're talking about multiple Super Bowls. So I think the regime has done a good job getting the Packers to where they need to be. They just needed to take advantage of a couple opportunities along the way to put up the gaudy numbers we were hoping for. But bringing it back a little bit to this season, it's not going to get any easier. Monday night, the Packers play in Philadelphia. Then they host Houston and Seattle. If they're going to get on a roll, they better start right now.
Yeah, and I'll be honest, I don't see them beating Philly at Philly. I don't see them beating Houston or Seattle at home right now because Lambeau is not the feared place to play when you're playing a mass unit. And, you know, beating the Giants looks more impressive now. It seems like they got their stuff together. And, you know, beating the Bears is not really impressive. Beating Jacksonville doesn't look any better than the Bears, to be honest with you. And beating Detroit, that might be their signature win of the year. And who knows, Detroit loses this game against Minnesota tomorrow. You know, Minnesota's right back in the driver's seat, and, you know, Detroit's not really that impressive of a win either. So,
you know, and that matchup couldn't have come at a worse time for Packer fans in their playoff hopes. Either one of the teams is going to go 2.5 games ahead of the Packers. Thankfully, the Packers do have the victory over the Lions to help the division record somewhat. On the other hand, it's going to be hard looking up at both of those teams, and one in particular is going to be way up on them.
Absolutely, and you look at the schedule remaining, I just think that, you know, the Packers' schedule is not very friendly, and that by being that early, we thought it was actually a blessing because they were banged up already week 3. You know, having the bye week 4, we thought was going to be, you know, some sort of get healthy, you know, break that they needed desperately, and it's really just snowballed. You look at the Lions' schedule coming up after tomorrow. They have the Saints at New Orleans, very losable but very winnable. Then they have the Bears at home, the Giants at New York, and then at the Cowboys, and then finish up with the Packers at home. So, I mean, they could lose 4 times yet. The problem is, how many times will the Packers lose?
Right, because even one loss is going to put them behind the 8 ball, because one of these 2 teams between Minnesota and Detroit, unless they happen to have a tie, is going to be 7-4. The Packers lose 1 out of their next 6, and they're down at 9-7. That simply means whichever team wins on Thanksgiving between the Vikings and the Lions, well, they only have to go 3-2 to end up ahead of the Packers, even if the Packers lose only once more the rest of the way. So that just illustrates how steep of a climb the Packers have. I guess to try to shed a little, or try to step away from the cliff here for the moment, you were mentioning changes, so I'm putting you in the driver's seat. You want changes? What are you looking to have? What are you looking to see change over for the next season?
For the next season?
Yes.
I'd like to see us make a splash, get the veteran leadership you need in the secondary to shore up the communication. In my opinion, Dom Capers would need to be replaced. I wouldn't even be surprised if Mike McCarthy's replaced. I know he's gotten us to playoffs 7 years in a row and like 8 out of the last 9 or whatever. But there comes a point in coaches' careers, and there's a shelf life of coaches. And Jeff Fisher would be one that would defy the odds. Bill Belichick will probably be one that defies the odds as well. But there comes a time where players don't respond the same way. Teams figure stuff out, figure out route patterns and tendencies, and when you have 11 years in your tenure, it just comes to a point where I think teams have them figured out. I think a little bit of a change of energy, a little bit more personality from the coach, where the team will take on the passion and the energy, I think is the biggest word. And I think that's needed here, and I would not be surprised or disappointed, to be quite honest. I don't think Mike McCarthy is a very good playoff coach. I think we got lucky in 2010, and I think that Dom Capers is, like I said, past his prime and past his time. So I'd like to see a new regime of coaches. I don't have as much of a problem with Ted Thompson, other than the fact that it seems like we draft a lot of injury-prone and medical chart guys that were hurt in college, or, you know, Clay Matthews, for instance, great player when he's playing at times, but he's just been, every year he misses 2 to 4 games, every year.
Right, and at this point, he's, in his 8th season? I believe he was drafted in 2009, so it might simply be age at this point starting to catch up with him a bit. He's starting to hit that 30 mark, I would imagine. Starting to see a few other players aging out here as well. You haven't heard a lot of Julius Peppers this season. The secondary is really young, but we've had issues in the secondary. It's coming to a time where something's got to change. It's a question of, is it dramatic, or is it the question of, does Ted Thompson find another gem in the draft?
Well, there was a thing on, and I don't know if I touched on this show, but I talked about it, with the last 7 draft picks of the Packers in the first round versus the last 7 picks of the Dallas Cowboys in the first round. And you look at back to the Des Bryant year, I think that's 7 years, you look back to that and you go, wow, they have 7 of 7 still on their team, or 6 of 7 starting, or something like that. And the Packers have literally 2 of them that are still on the team and impact players. I don't understand, I guess. Ted Thompson's got this reputation of building through the draft. You have to find impact players. And I understand, we're picking from 23 to 32 every year the last 7 years, basically because of the fact that we made the playoffs. But he's made one aggressive move where he moved up to get Clay Matthews back into the first round, and actually got two first-round picks that year with B.J. Raji and then Clay Matthews, obviously. But other than that, there's not really been a huge impact draft class. And I think this is another year where, Kyler Fackrell's playing, Blake Martinez is playing. Maybe it's need a year to get the legs under them and get up to the speed of the game, but I've seen Fackrell look absolutely awful at times. He's made a few plays, but Blake Martinez has overrun a lot of plays. He's missed a lot of tackles. I don't think he's very good in coverage, which you don't really have to be as a middle linebacker, but when you're playing at 3-4 and you're rushing your ends, you have to be able to cover some green. And Kenny Clark I think he's made 3 tackles this year, 3 or 4 plays, 1 or 2 for a loss. I haven't seen him in on pass rushing downs at all, obviously, with Peppers and Perry and Clay Matthews and Mike Daniels usually being in there, or they put in Dayton Jones. So I'd like to see a first-round pick be an every down guy that can make an impact, and I don't think we've drafted that guy in a long time.
Yeah, you have to wonder if that guy's even been available, or if on one high draft pick or drafting high in the rounds this next year, if things continue to go this way, will help restore some of that talent. It makes it harder, though, to build solely through the draft like Thompson likes to do with these low draft picks. Like you mentioned, they're drafting between anywhere from 21 to 32 every single year because of their success, and that's going to catch up to teams. And is it just the fact that we're hitting that, or is it a lot more as failure as far as Thompson goes to making these picks stand out? And then you also have Packer fans have the anger really at Thompson for not going out and making splashes more often, but I think we've seen over the years the splashes he does make, when he makes them, tend to stand up, and they tend to be fantastic, whereas you could see other teams every single year making a splash, not mentioning any team by name, Cleveland Browns, but they never end up panning out.
Right, and I'm not asking them to sell the farm or to go out and make all kinds of splashes, but like this year, the big moves were trading for Niall Davis and claiming Kristen Michael off waivers. We're sitting here going into Week 12 with neither one of those guys yet to be an impact. And then, I understand that's in-season stuff, but you just traded a conditional draft pick away for a guy you cut 10 days later. That's not a good move.
Well, it might be a good move simply because the condition of the draft pick's probably if the player sticks around for X amount of time. It was basically to give the Packers first dibs on Davis, get a guy on the roster when they had nobody, and to see what he could do without having to fight with other teams to try to claim him on waivers. So I can't argue with that at all. Now, as far as Michael goes, we'll see how that pans out too.
Yeah, and look, the fact that you're drafting between 21 and 32, as you said, if you're going to get that guy, you don't have to sell the farm, but you might have to make an aggressive move to move up ahead of somebody to get a, you know, say it's a linebacker or, you know, whatever it might be. I was sitting here watching the draft this year, and you know, Miles Jack, I know, had the injury thing he was dealing with, but there was Jalen Ramsey on the board we could have traded up to get to solve our corner issues. There was, and who knows what these guys' career is going to be, but at this point, I'm going, you reach for Kenny Clark when there's other D tackles on the board that, you know, a lot of experts had rated higher than Kenny Clark, and then I see 3/4 of a season now where he's not really making an impact, and I just wonder, you know, Dayton Jones, in my opinion, has been a bust so far. He's probably had his most productive year this year as a pass rush specialist only. Nick Perry finally is having a decent year. He's got, I think, 7.5 sacks or 8.5 or whatever it is. But really, how many times have we made high draft picks or 3/4 of our draft picks in the draft on the defensive side of the ball? And what is our glaring weakness right now, our depth on defense? You know, we're sitting here talking about 4th and 5th and 6th corners, Gunter and Goodson, and, you know, even Micah Hyde. I mean, I think he's had his worst year ever. He got crossed up, I think, 3 times the other night where guys shook him in the slot, and Jordan Reed made him look silly. You know, he's covering guys that, you know, are just better athletes than him, and it's glaring right now. I looked and I listened to the starting lineups on Sunday night, and I'm going, Brian Bulaga, Iowa, Micah Hyde, Iowa, somebody else, Indiana. I'm going, no wonder we're not winning. We got a bunch of second-rate Big Ten players instead of drafting from winning programs, you know, and Ohio State, Alabama, these guys typically have better athletes, although Clinton Dix was definitely not proof of that from Alabama.
Yeah, I take it you're down on him as well.
I don't think Clinton Dix gives 100% effort. I think he takes plays off. Rob Kelly's run the other night right before halftime is proof. He did not stick his nose in there, and he could have made the tackle at the 5-yard line or so, and 4-yard line maybe, and really shied away from contact, which I thought he was this big hitter when he came out of college, and he's made he had 2 interceptions a couple weeks ago, and you know, I think he looks good at times, but I think there's a lot of times where he takes plays off, and you know, I know last year there was a big blow up with him and Raji on the sideline, and I wonder if Raji was questioning his effort. So I think that's one of the main guys that his effort lacks at times.
All right. Well, let's transition into next week here. We got a 3rd straight road game against the Philadelphia Eagles. They have a rookie quarterback in Carson Wentz, where I believe they made an aggressive move to grab him out of North Dakota State. He's been pretty good for a rookie so far. I think this is really, honestly, I think this is Dom Capers' last stand. If he cannot fool a rookie quarterback, I think he might be in trouble.
Yeah, I agree. I think that he's got to go out and be aggressive, and you know, the whole bend but don't break, that works with starters, but that's the glaring weakness is when you have, you know, your 2nd and 3rd string corners and linebackers playing. You have to be aggressive and force their hand and fool them with disguised looks. And we very rarely blitz the double-A gap like a lot of other teams are doing to try and get the quarterback off their spot. We can't get home with 4 guys. Our defensive pass rush has been atrocious.
It just feels like it's been non-existent.
Yeah, and we've played some weaker offensive lines, you know, in the Indianapolis Colts, Washington's line the other night, they talked about the guy with the bum ankle, and I think Perry beat him once. But other than that, when did we really get any pressure on Kirk Cousins? So we're going to have to get some pressure on the quarterback Monday night to have a chance in that game.
All right, and I'm going to guess that they don't, just from what I've seen so far. With all the injuries, you may see Clay Matthews in the middle a little bit more, which actually might give Dom Capers an incentive to start gambling a bit more, start blitzing a bit more from those middle positions, because you don't want to waste Clay Matthews' pass rush ability, because you have to put him in the middle because you have nobody else. So maybe that sparks some creativity here, but I don't think it's happening. I see the Packers falling in this one 31-20.
Yeah, I think it's going to be worse than that, honestly. The only thing that might give us a chance is we have Aaron Rodgers on our team. And, if we can stay healthy and keep him upright on the offensive side of the ball, I think there's always a chance. And I'll never lose hope. And, I'm a Packer fan till the day I die. I'm not going anywhere, but this team has given us a lot of reason to doubt them. And I think that the big X factor to this game is Darren Sproles. I think the fact is if he's healthy or whoever's at running back creates matchup problems for Carl Bradford and Joe Thomas both. I don't know if they'll put Fackrell and Perry on the outside and move Clay inside, which I think would be a good move at this point. You almost have to win out. This is a must-win if you're going to have any shot at a playoff spot. If they win out or go 9-7, I think they could still squeak in, but I don't see it happening. And I don't mean to be pessimistic, but I'm a realist, and as a coach, you're always going, hey, we can win every game. All we got to do is go 1-0 this week, and that's always been my motto. So I don't see us beating Philadelphia at Philadelphia with the way we've played lately. If for some reason we bounce back, I could see the Packers going in there and upsetting Philly, but I'm going to pick Philly. I'm going to say 38-27.
All right. Yep, they do definitely need to find something that they haven't found over the past month here. What that is, that's still unknown at this point. But do you have any final thoughts on this week of misery in Packerland?
No, and I just wanted to say, from my family to yours, Joe, I hope you enjoy your Thanksgiving, and we can all give thanks, and at least we're not the Bears.
That is always true. As bad as things can get in Packerland, at least we're not Bears fans, we're not Vikings fans, we're not Lions fans.
Yeah, and look, I mean, there's a lot of things to be thankful for, but that's one of the best things to be thankful for is that we are not rooting for a team with a toilet seat on their helmet.
That is absolutely the truth. And for the Town Huddle at thegruelingtruth.net, my name is Joe Pritchard, and along with Aaron Zepnick, we wish you a very happy Thanksgiving, and thank you for listening to the Town Huddle.
The Bears still suck. The Bears still suck. The Bears still suck. The Bears still suck. They really, 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 really suck. Yes, the Bears still suck.
Thank you for listening to the Town Huddle on thegruelingtruth.net.